Orders. Oaths. Lieutenant Wynn, can you name the mission?
Can you prove the existence of the so-called Selkie project?
They said her medals were fake. Then the president walked in. Truth shook everyone. Those medals are fake, Lieutenant Wynn. No woman has earned a Navy SEAL Silver Star, prosecutor Colonel Martinez declared in military court. He had no idea President Jonathan Reeves was walking through the courthouse doors carrying classified files that would shatter his career. Lieutenant Kara Wynn, 29, faced court-martial for stolen valor, while her authentic Silver Star from classified SEAL operations remained hidden under presidential secrecy protocols. Her career and freedom depended on classified truth that officially didn't exist. President Reeves had personally awarded Kara's Silver Star during Project Selkie, the classified program training female operators for missions requiring gender-specific capabilities. Her sacrifice deserved recognition, not persecution, from ignorant military prosecutors. Lieutenant Kara Wynn had been selected as one of 12 women for Project Selkie, the Navy's most classified program training female operators for special operations missions, requiring infiltration capabilities that conventional SEAL teams couldn't provide through standard personnel assignments. Her Silver Star was earned during classified counterterrorism operation in Yemen, where she'd eliminated high-value terrorist target while maintaining humanitarian aid worker cover identity that enabled access to terrorist safe house, where male operators would have been immediately detected. The operation had prevented planned terrorist attack against American embassy personnel, while Kara's injuries from secondary IED blast required months of recovery that classified medical facilities provided through compartmentalized treatment protocols. Project Selkie existed at presidential daily briefing levels, with only 18 personnel worldwide authorized to acknowledge the program's existence, while participating operators' service records remained classified to protect ongoing operations requiring continued operational security. Kara's transition back to conventional Navy assignments had created identity crisis, where her elite training and combat experience couldn't be acknowledged through normal career progression or military recognition that other special operations personnel received. Colonel Roberto Martinez had built his military legal career through high-profile court-martial prosecutions that generated media attention and advancement opportunities while demonstrating aggressive enforcement of military honor codes and uniform regulations. His particular obsession with stolen valor cases reflected personal inadequacy about his own non-combat military service, while prosecuting decorated personnel provided vicarious satisfaction that his staff assignments had never delivered through actual military operations. Martinez's ignorance about classified programs made him ideal prosecutor for cases where operational security prevented defendants from providing complete service record documentation, creating easy victories against personnel whose actual service exceeded his civilian comprehension. President Jonathan Reeves had personally authorized Project Selkie during his previous role as Defense Secretary, while his continuing oversight of classified operations included protecting personnel whose service remained compartmentalized at levels requiring presidential authorization to acknowledge or discuss through conventional military or civilian channels. Colonel Martinez's case against Kara Wynn relied on absence of conventional service records, while his investigation had deliberately ignored classified personnel databases that required security clearances he didn't possess to access or understand appropriately. Lieutenant Wynn's Silver Star citation contains operational details that no female military personnel has ever accomplished, making fraud obvious to anyone with actual military experience. Martinez argued his ignorance about female special operations creating prosecutorial confidence. His evidence included expert testimony from retired SEALs who'd never been briefed about Project Selkie, while their masculine prejudice against female combat capability provided perfect character witnesses for prosecution seeking to discredit authentic service. Additionally, Lieutenant Wynn's medical records show injuries inconsistent with her claimed Yemen deployment, proving systematic deception regarding combat service that female personnel are incapable of performing. Martinez continued, misinterpreting classified medical treatment. Kara maintained military bearing despite facing prosecution that used her classified service against her, while operational security prevented complete defense that would compromise ongoing operations requiring continued compartmentalization. Furthermore, no classified program exists training female SEALs, making defendants' claims obviously fraudulent attempts to exploit military respect for special operations personnel. Martinez declared his systematic ignorance creating prosecutorial narrative. The court-martial panel consisted entirely of male officers whose combat experience had never included working with female special operations personnel, their gender bias making them receptive to prosecution arguments about female military limitations. Gentlemen, common sense dictates that women lack physical and psychological capabilities required for SEAL operations, making defendants' claims obviously fraudulent. Martinez addressed panel members whose prejudice aligned with prosecutorial strategy. Kara's defense attorney, lacking appropriate security clearance, could only offer weak objections to systematic character assassination that used classified operational security as evidence of fraud, rather than recognizing legitimate compartmentalization's requirements. Lieutenant Wynn's inability to provide detailed operational testimony proves deception rather than classification, while her gender makes special operations service physically impossible. Martinez continued, exploiting military prejudice. Judge Advocate Colonel Patricia Rodriguez, presiding over court-martial, demonstrated institutional bias against female combat claims, while her own non-combat service made her sympathetic to prosecution arguments about military honor requiring aggressive enforcement. Lieutenant Wynn represents dangerous precedent where female personnel exploit military respect for special operations through systematic fraud that undermines institutional honor and battlefield credibility, Martinez argued during closing statements. His systematic attack included questioning Kara's mental health, suggesting that PTSD symptoms from actual combat were evidence of psychological instability, rather than recognizing service-connected trauma from classified operations requiring ongoing treatment. Additionally, defendants claimed Yemen injuries were actually sustained during training accident, while her manipulation of medical records demonstrates premeditated fraud rather than legitimate combat service. Martinez continued, mischaracterizing classified medical treatment. The prosecution's strategy relied on institutional sexism, while Kara's silence about operational details was interpreted as consciousness of guilt rather than operational security compliance that presidential classification required through ongoing compartmentalization. Furthermore, Lieutenant Wynn's fraud dishonors legitimate special operations personnel whose actual service deserves protection from female exploitation of military heroism through systematic deception. Martinez declared, his final argument combining gender prejudice with prosecutorial ambition that would soon face presidential authority, challenging every assumption about female military capability. Secret Service advance teams had been coordinating with military security for hours before President Reeves's unscheduled arrival at Naval Base San Diego Courthouse, where classified personnel faced prosecution that threatened operational security and presidential prerogatives over military classification. Agent Rodriguez, President Reeves will be entering military courtroom to address classified matter affecting national security operations under his direct authorization. Secret Service detail leader Michael Santos announced to military security personnel. The presidential intervention represented unprecedented executive involvement in military court-martial proceedings, while Kara's case had escalated to levels requiring Commander-in-Chief authority over classified program disclosure and personnel protection. Additionally, Agent Rodriguez's presidential security protocols take precedence over military court procedures when classified operations require executive protection from unauthorized disclosure. Santos continued through encrypted communications. Federal coordination included Pentagon classification review, ensuring presidential intervention maintained operational security while protecting classified personnel from prosecution based on compartmentalized service that military legal system couldn't properly evaluate. Furthermore, President Reeves carries presidential briefing materials regarding Project Selkie that will require courtroom security upgrade and classified evidence handling protocols. Santos declared, the executive intervention would establish permanent precedent protecting classified military personnel from prosecution when operational security prevented conventional legal defense while preserving presidential authority over special operations classification and personnel recognition. Defense Secretary Patricia Martinez coordinated with White House legal counsel to address systematic prosecution of classified personnel, while Kara's court-martial threatened to expose operational details that enemy intelligence services would exploit for counterintelligence operations. Secretary Martinez, Presidential Classification Review indicates Lieutenant Wynn's prosecution threatens Project Selkie operational security, while defense testimony could compromise ongoing female special operations missions, announced Pentagon General Counsel Michael Rodriguez. The classification review revealed prosecutorial misconduct where Colonel Martinez had deliberately ignored available security channels that would have confirmed Kara's authentic service, while his ambition had created national security crisis. Additionally, Secretary Martinez, Lieutenant Wynn's Silver Star citation was personally signed by President Reeves during classified ceremony that congressional intelligence committees were briefed about through appropriate channels. Rodriguez continued, congressional oversight had been notified about Project Selkie through classified briefings, while Kara's prosecution represented institutional failure to protect classified personnel from military legal system lacking appropriate security clearances for evaluation. Furthermore, this presidential intervention will establish protocols ensuring classified military personnel receive appropriate legal protection without compromising operational security that ongoing missions require, Rodriguez declared. Active duty SEAL teams and special operations personnel activated support networks when news spread through classified channels that Project Selkie participant faced prosecution for authentic service that operational security had made invisible to conventional military recognition. Chief Williams, Lieutenant Wynn represents classified female special operations capability that this community has supported through training and operational coordination requiring our institutional protection, announced SEAL Team 6, Commander Captain Patricia Santos. The special operations response included classified testimony preparation while maintaining operational security that presidential intervention would enable through appropriate classification authority and executive protection of personnel records. Additionally, Chief Williams, Lieutenant Wynn's Yemen operation was conducted in support of SEAL team operations where her gender-specific capabilities enabled mission success that male personnel couldn't have accomplished. Santos continued. Federal Special Operations Command coordinated with presidential security, ensuring classified personnel received appropriate recognition while maintaining compartmentalization that ongoing operations required through Presidential Classification Authority. Furthermore, this case establishes precedent ensuring classified special operations personnel receive legal protection when operational security prevents conventional military recognition of their service and sacrifice, Santos declared. The military brotherhood response demonstrated institutional commitment to protecting classified warriors whose service remained hidden while their sacrifice deserved recognition that presidential authority could provide through appropriate channels, maintaining operational security requirements. President Jonathan Reeves entered the military courtroom with full executive authority, his presence immediately transforming routine court-martial into unprecedented demonstration of presidential power over military classification and special operations personnel protection. Attention in the courtroom, announced Secret Service Agent Rodriguez as all military personnel rose for Commander-in-Chief, whose constitutional authority superseded military legal proceedings when national security required presidential intervention. President Reeves carried classified briefing materials that would vindicate Kara Wynn while establishing executive precedent protecting classified military personnel from prosecution based on compartmentalized service that conventional military courts couldn't properly evaluate. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to address systematic prosecution of classified military personnel whose service remains compartmentalized at presidential authorization levels, Reeves announced, his executive authority creating constitutional crisis for military prosecutors. The presidential intervention included immediate classification review of court proceedings while establishing security protocols that would protect operational details from unauthorized disclosure during legal proceedings requiring executive oversight. Additionally, Lieutenant Kara Wynn's service record includes classified special operations that I personally authorized while her Silver Star was awarded during ceremony that congressional intelligence committees were appropriately briefed about, Reeves continued. Congressional oversight had been maintained through classified channels, while Kara's prosecution represented institutional failure to coordinate between military legal system and executive classification authority governing special operations personnel and mission acknowledgement. Project Selkie represents classified special operations program that I authorized as Defense Secretary, training female operators for missions requiring gender-specific infiltration capabilities that conventional SEAL teams cannot provide, President Reeves announced to stunned courtroom. The presidential disclosure maintained operational security while providing sufficient detail to vindicate Kara's authentic service without compromising ongoing female special operations missions requiring continued classification and compartmentalization. Lieutenant Wynn was selected as one of 12 women whose training exceeded conventional SEAL standards, while their operational capabilities enabled missions that male personnel could not accomplish due to cultural and tactical limitations. Reeves continued, military court personnel faced unprecedented situation where Commander-in-Chief was personally briefing them about classified programs while their security clearances had never included access to presidential daily briefing level operations. Additionally, Lieutenant Wynn's Silver Star was earned during Yemen operation, where she eliminated high-value terrorist target while maintaining humanitarian aid worker cover identity that prevented planned embassy attack, Reeves declared. The operational details provided sufficient evidence to establish Kara's heroic service while maintaining classification that protected similar ongoing operations from enemy intelligence exploitation through public court proceedings. Furthermore, Project Selkie participant service records remain classified to protect operational security, while their sacrifice deserves recognition that this prosecution has systematically denied through institutional ignorance, Reeves stated. Colonel Martinez faced immediate disciplinary action for prosecutorial misconduct, while his systematic ignorance of classified programs had created national security crisis, requiring presidential intervention and comprehensive military legal reform. Colonel Martinez, your prosecution violated operational security while demonstrating institutional failure to coordinate with appropriate classification authorities before proceeding against classified personnel, President Reeves announced. The presidential intervention would result in Martinez's immediate removal from military legal service while establishing protocols ensuring classified personnel received appropriate legal protection without compromising operational security. Additionally, this case establishes mandatory security clearance verification for military prosecutors handling cases involving special operations personnel whose service may include classified operations, Reeves continued. Congressional oversight would examine systematic failures in military legal system, while Kara's case influenced comprehensive reform protecting classified personnel from prosecution based on compartmentalized service records. Furthermore, Lieutenant Wynn's vindication demonstrates presidential commitment to protecting classified warriors whose service remains hidden, while their sacrifice deserves appropriate recognition through executive authority, Reeves declared. The military justice reform would create permanent protocols ensuring classified special operations personnel received appropriate legal representation while maintaining operational security that ongoing missions required through presidential classification oversight. Federal legislation would result from Kara's case establishing specialized military courts with appropriate security clearances for handling classified personnel legal issues while preserving operational security that national security demanded through executive authority. Lieutenant Kara Wynn received immediate dismissal of all charges, while President Reeves's personal intervention established her as decorated Special Operations veteran, whose classified service had prevented terrorist attacks through extraordinary courage and professional competence. Congressional recognition included Kara's appointment to Presidential Advisory Committee on Women in Special Operations, while her case influenced federal legislation protecting classified military personnel from prosecution based on compartmentalized service records. The Department of Defense established Kara as instructor for female special operations training, while her vindication inspired recruitment programs demonstrating military commitment to gender integration in elite combat roles requiring specialized capabilities. Federal recognition included presidential citation honoring Kara's sacrifice, while Project Selkie received appropriate congressional oversight, ensuring continued operational effectiveness, without compromising security requirements that ongoing missions demanded. National media coverage generated awareness about female special operations contributions, while Kara's story inspired young women considering military service that combat roles were available through appropriate training and presidential support. The Wynne precedent became military law protecting classified female operators from gender discrimination while establishing presidential authority over special operations personnel recognition that conventional military promotion systems couldn't adequately address. Kara addressed military academies monthly, her classified special operations experience providing credibility that influenced comprehensive gender integration, while her case demonstrated successful female combat capability exceeding traditional expectations. Federal legislation created female special operations career pathways, while Project Selkie expansion included enhanced training programs, ensuring gender-specific operational capabilities received appropriate military recognition and career development. National recognition included Kara's foundation providing mentorship for women in special operations, while her advocacy work ensured rapid response when classified personnel faced discrimination requiring immediate intervention and presidential protection. Her story inspired comprehensive military reform, ensuring female warriors received appropriate recognition while maintaining operational security that classified missions required through ongoing presidential oversight and congressional coordination. Kara Wynne's transformation from prosecuted defendant to presidential advisor demonstrated how classified service required executive protection when conventional military recognition systems failed to acknowledge female special operations contributions. The military courthouse, where she faced prosecution, became training center for military legal personnel, learning classified personnel protection while demonstrating presidential authority over special operations recognition and career development. Her partnership with active duty special operations created permanent support networks, ensuring female operators received appropriate recognition while maintaining operational security that classified missions demanded through Presidential Classification Authority. Kara continues federal service protecting classified female warriors, while her case established permanent precedent, ensuring special operations personnel received appropriate legal protection, demonstrating that presidential authority could vindicate classified heroes whose service remained hidden but whose sacrifice deserved recognition. The Kara recognition transformed military special operations through enhanced female integration while establishing presidential precedent, protecting classified personnel from prosecution based on compartmentalized service that conventional military courts couldn't properly evaluate. Kara addressed congressional committees monthly, her special operations experience providing credibility that influenced comprehensive gender integration, while her case demonstrated successful female combat capability requiring institutional recognition and career development. The Department of Defense created female special operations career pathways, ensuring appropriate recognition while maintaining operational security that classified missions required through ongoing presidential oversight and Congressional Intelligence Committee coordination. Federal funding supported female operator recruitment, while Kara's foundation provided mentorship, ensuring women in special operations received appropriate support and recognition despite classification requirements that prevented public acknowledgement of their service and sacrifice. Kara Wynne discovered that her classified special operations service created platform for presidential advisory work, protecting female warriors from institutional discrimination while ensuring gender integration received appropriate executive support and recognition. Her work establishing female operator protection programs helped classified personnel nationwide receive appropriate recognition while ensuring military courts understood operational security requirements affecting personnel legal representation and career development. The courtroom where prosecutors attacked her service became symbol of military justice reform, demonstrating presidential authority when classified personnel required protection from institutional ignorance and gender discrimination affecting career advancement and legal protection. The San Diego courthouse incident proved that classified military service required presidential protection when conventional systems failed to recognize female special operations contributions while maintaining operational security through appropriate classification authority. Kara learned that surviving prosecution created responsibility for protecting other classified warriors from similar discrimination. Classified service demands classified protection. When presidential authority activates for hidden warriors, no prosecution can diminish sacrifice made in shadows. Some medals shine brightest when defended by those with ultimate clearance to acknowledge their true worth. In the end, Kara Wynne learned that her Silver Star wasn't just metal and ribbon, it was classified truth that only presidential authority could unveil. When the commander-in-chief walked through that courtroom door, he didn't just save her career, he revealed that America's hidden heroes had been serving in silence, waiting for the moment when their sacrifice could finally be honored.